Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Sunday night, July the 21st. My God, does it sound like the weekend is still in my voice, still in my throat? That's okay. We're going to get through it because it's training camp week, baby. We are officially back. Well, we're not officially back. We're almost back. We're on the precipice of back. We're so close to being back. It is so within our reach. On Tuesday, the Titans will report. And on Wednesday, they will begin practice. And by Wednesday afternoon, it will be officially football season with football players on a football field doing football-related things. So ahead of this, we had 3 burning questions about the Titans' defense last week. Today will be 3 burning questions about the Titans' offense as we prepare for another week of work, as we prepare for the first week of work that we've had in the past 6 weeks. And I know you guys are as anxious to get that up and rolling as are we. So we'll talk about Brian Callahan and the offensive side of the football, the questions that we have there. We'll talk about who will lead the Titans in receptions this year. A little bit of Sunday Funday is how we will wrap the show. Before we get started, need you guys to share the broadcast around so we can get even more of your Titans friends involved. If you're hanging out on Twitter, please retweet the show. It's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. If you're on YouTube or Twitch like Amar, who says, I think the political channels are more entertaining right now, Buck. What a shit show. Yes, unfortunately for me, this football season should be exciting, but it will be engulfed by a political cycle that is going to suffocate us all, it would seem, with the news. I think this is the first time that a presidential candidate has stepped or has declined to accept his party's nomination. In the case of current President Joe Biden, he will not be the Democratic nominee, and it'll be somebody else running against Donald Trump. And certainly my neighbors down the hall at WTN, the political talk station in my building where I do the radio show, are going to kick my ass in the ratings for the next 2.5 months. But that's okay, because we've got Titans football to talk about, and we're going to go into battle with our best conversations. Once you've shared this show, we can go ahead and get this show started. So let's do it. Enough of the nonsense. Let's talk football. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. Promo code ATOZTN. Get you in on all the action. Betting just got better in the Zen Sports app. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com, where you go for quality American-made Ford vehicles. And TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated at TrueMath Fitness. They are there to help you improve upon your fitness goals. Offense for the Titans. It's a new offensive era, right? It's Brian Callahan. It's no longer Tim Kelly. No more Todd Downing. No more defensive-minded head coach in Mike Vrabel. Brian Callahan is about to begin his first training camp as head coach of the Titans. So it's a fresh start for this franchise after Vrabel, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry all depart this offseason. And so much hinges on Callahan and second-year quarterback Will Levis, as we have discussed many, many times over. So what are the 3 biggest questions that are heading into training camp? I'm going to give you my 3 biggest questions about the offense, but I am going to ask you for just one simply in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. What is your biggest question around the Titans offense that must be answered when training camp begins, or as training camp begins? We will talk about it together. As I mentioned, you could pick from any number of options, right? There's a lot of new faces, not a lot of new coaches. This figures to be a new offensive system. It will no longer be running back centric, though there will be running back involvement. It will be supplemented by running backs this year, as opposed to the last 8 years, which it has been fueled by running backs, right? Derrick Henry, DeMarco Murray, or otherwise. It's been quite some time since the Titans have had that kind of a philosophical shift to go from running the football and playing hard-nosed, smash-mouth defense to still wanting to play hard-nosed, smash-mouth defense, but understanding that the way that you produce, the way that you function offensively is going to be significantly different from what it has been in years past. Yuri Barkin says the pass rush is the biggest question. Well, that would make sense if we were doing defense, which was last week, Yuri. So thank you for keeping up. We're talking offense tonight, which is why your play calling, offensive-minded head coach is on the graphic. Pass rush would not be a part of the offensive side of the ball. It's your Two Rivers Ford take. It's presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Quality American-made Ford vehicles, award-winning customer service is what they offer. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. Whether it's new or certified pre-owned, Two Rivers always has you covered. They make the car buying process fast, easy, and the most fun. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information today. The biggest question that you have on the offensive side of the football, what is it as we head into camp? I see quarterbacks plural, from Eric Alonso, which is an interesting discussion in and of itself. We know this year that Will Levis comes in as the undisputed starting quarterback for this football team for the first time in his career, because he's only in year two. He's only heading into year two, but last year, obviously, the situation was Ryan Tannehill was the starter. Malik Willis was the backup. Will Levis only played one game in the preseason, had a couple of practices in Minnesota, or a practice in Minnesota in joint camp work before he experienced a quad injury that knocked him out for the remainder of the preseason, relegated him to the third quarterback until such time as Tannehill was injured. They made a change of the bye week. They flip-flopped Tannehill and Levis, jumping over Malik Willis, who remained as the backup, and allowed Levis to kind of start the process of taking over. But it is one of my biggest questions about the Titans offense is Will Levis's second-year progression, right? There should be no disputing. And in fact, Bert, I wish that I had thought to have you pull this audio or this video, but I think I may be able to do it myself on my phone. Chris Johnson, CJ2K, was on the radio show. In fact, I am going to be able to do that, Bert. Don't you worry. I'm more than capable enough. We'll see if we can't make this work in a way that's productive. But Will Levis is an interesting figure here, right? He comes in as the undisputed starting quarterback, and there's no question that that makes a difference. Now you don't have to worry about stepping on other people's toes. Now you don't have to worry about I know that there was always the line under Vrabel that there's no cap on leadership. There's no limit on leadership, right? You can be as much of a leader as you want to in an NFL locker room, regardless of your position, place, tenure, whatever. But it's different if you have an established quarterback who's been in the league for over a decade, i.e. Ryan Tannehill, and a second-round pick at quarterback coming in an unsure situation because he's just experienced a pretty unpleasant draft process, right, for him, where Will Levis is supposed to be a first-round pick, it has all the talent in the world to be a first-round pick, falls out of the first round, even though the Titans are actively trying to trade back up into the first round to get him in that 2023 NFL draft. But it creates this situation where you look at it, you're trying to sit back, you're trying to make sure that you're not in Ryan Tannehill's way because it's not your place. Even though there is no limit on leadership, you are still not the starting quarterback, the undisputed leader of the football team. And that is something that Chris Johnson and myself and Lucas Panzica, we talked about on the radio show, and we'll play that for you.
Seeing different guys at the quarterback position kind of go through the ebbs and flows of how difficult that can be. What advice would you give for Will Levis heading into year two?
Man, just, block out all the noise and just put your head down and work, because it's I've been through it myself. It's a big difference when you're going into training camp, knowing you the starter, and preparing for the season, rather than going into training camp or not. Well, basically when you're the backup, you're in training camp, but you're helping the defense get ready. So it's really you're not really having a training camp because they're preparing. When we're going into training camp, they're basically preparing the starter to get ready for the season. So when you're the backup, you just there, you getting prepared, but you there for insurance. So I done been through it where I done missed training camp and going right into the season and not having one of my best years. So him in the same situation, he was in training camp, but he wasn't the guy getting prepped, getting ready for the season. So when it's time to make the switch, you get thrown in the fire and it's like, okay, what you gonna do? But when you're going into a training camp, you know you the starter, you prepping yourself for the season. That is, it's like night and day. So I feel like you're gonna see a whole totally different guy. Even last year when he was thrown in the fire, he had his flashes, his highlights throughout those games and stuff like that. And I feel like this year we're gonna see a totally different guy, way better guy, more patient. He can make all the throws. He also that guy that, if it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and he got to scramble and put his head down and get those yards, he would do it, even though we don't want to see him taking all those hits and things because we need him throughout the season. But he's a guy that I feel like can take over and put that offense on his back, especially with all the playmakers we got. And just, we just need him to get the balls in all those guys' hands, and they'll be all right.
When's kind of shouldering that?
Okay, so not my best editing job there, but that's Chris Johnson, CJ2K, Titans legendary running back, speaking about Will Levis, the advice that he would offer him. A to Z Sports Prime Time is presented by the wonderful people at Zen Sports. Plug in the promo code ATOZTN. Get up to $100 on your no danger first wager, whether it's baseball that is officially back, football right around the corner. There is no better place for you to wager on all of your favorite major sports than Zen Sports. Plug in the promo code ATOZTN. Get that up to $100 no danger first wager. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789 in the Zen Sports app. So that full conversation with CJ2K, you can check out on the radio show's podcast. In fact, I might ask Bert to do me the courtesy of putting the YouTube link in the live stream chat here if you guys wanted to watch that interview with Chris Johnson, because we talked about a lot of different things. It was on the day, in fact, that the Titans signed Jamal Adams, so we got his thoughts on that. We got his thoughts on the running back situation, how difficult it is as a franchise legend to leave the franchise that you are the legend for. In the case of Derrick Henry, CJ's got a lot of good insights, and he's trying to get into personnel evaluation, trying to get into an NFL front office, making a pretty interesting case for himself as a talent evaluator. So I think you will enjoy that conversation, and you can watch that right after we wrap up here instead of watching, presidential election coverage, because God knows you're going to be inundated with that over the course of the next 2.5 months. Point being, Will Levis is one of the biggest burning questions about this Titans offense. How he takes command, how he fills that leadership void that Tannehill and Derrick Henry leave in their wake. God knows they've gone all out to surround him with ample talent, and it's been a really busy offseason for him, right? He's learning a new offense. It's the 5th consecutive season that he's had to learn a new offensive system with a new offensive play caller. He's been running all over the place in the offseason since the Super Bowl. He's appearing in celebrity poker tournaments, right? He's playing in the Live Golf Pro-Am with Phil Mickelson. He's taking all the Titans veteran skill players to Mexico for a team building trip and stuff like that. He has the talent, he has the personality, he has the characteristics to really elevate the Titans on and off the field, but he is a big question mark until such time as he proves that he is not. The first and foremost, though, biggest question, though, heading into training camp is the offensive line in pads, right? They've invested heavily. They've added players in free agency. Lloyd Cushenberry, Sadiq Charles, Jerron Christian signed with the Titans as free agents. Cushenberry, obviously the most important of those three, though it sounds like Sadiq Charles is at least going to get the opportunity at the start of camp to be the right guard, and then we'll see if he ends up keeping that job throughout the course of this. But fully padded practices are not that far in the future. We'll have a ramp up as we get there. They won't immediately be in pads when they have their first practice on Wednesday. But the left side of the offensive line is solidified, right? There's no question. It's J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, and Lloyd Cushenberry from left tackle to center, the question becomes right guard, right tackle. I saw some people asking about Nicholas Petit-Frere also as a part of this. Not available at any point in the offseason program. I do not expect him to be immediately available on Wednesday, though we didn't talk to him because he didn't practice, so they won't make him available if he doesn't practice. I think that it is trending in the right direction. The shoulder injury is the thing that knocked him out. He only appeared in 3 games last year because you'll remember he missed the first 4 games due to the gambling suspension. The gambling suspension was supposed to be for 6. The NFL ultimately decided that his particular infraction was not worth a 6-game suspension, so they reduced it. Then by the time he got back out on the field, he got injured in week 9 in that Thursday night game against Pittsburgh. And that was after it happened very, very quickly. He appeared in only 3 games. He started only 1 after returning from that gambling suspension. And so NPF is probably the biggest wild card in the middle of all of this. And the third biggest question that this team faces ahead of training camp is the operation of Brian Callahan as a first-time NFL head coach. He is somebody who is, a proven commodity as an offensive play caller. I know that he has not been the person with final say on play calling until just now, because he's been working in a similar situation that he'll have here as Zach Taylor, who he came up under as his offensive coordinator in Cincinnati with the Bengals. It will be his first time having final say on the play calls, but he's been calling plays with Zach Taylor these last 5 years, so that's not my concern. I don't have concern necessarily, though I am looking forward to finding out what exactly kind of coach Brian Callahan is going to be. Is he going to be like Zach Taylor? Is he going to be different than Zach Taylor? He's worked under several different head coaches himself, right? Cincinnati wasn't his only NFL job. He was there in Vegas/Oakland under John Gruden. I can't remember who the head coach of the Detroit Lions was when he was there as the quarterback coach. Juan Delgado says Callie appears more ready than Vrabel. Well, of course, you have no idea whether that's true, and I don't know. Mike Vrabel was plenty ready for the job, right? Vrabel's job was to come in here and take a roster that they felt had hit its ceiling to the next level, and that's exactly what he did. He was plenty prepared for the moment, so I'm not sure how other than, you're projecting because your football team made a change, you're probably hopeful about Brian Callahan. There's nothing wrong with being hopeful about Brian Callahan, but I wouldn't try and compare it to the Vrabel situation because Mike Vrabel is imminently ready to be a head coach, and I'm sure at some point he will be a head coach again, though I know Titans fans got sick of hearing all offseason, well, he'll get a new job before he even realizes that he's been fired. And of course, that didn't play itself out. So I understand why there was some pushback from Titans fans, because a lot of us were also surprised to not see him get a head coaching job, but it would be foolish to compare the two situations. I think they're both eminently prepared, right? Brian Callahan's a football lifer. His father has been a head coach at the professional football level. He's also been the head coach of Nebraska. He has been an offensive coordinator. He is now the offensive line coach. There's a lot of veteran presence on this staff. So whatever Bill Callahan is to Brian, it's kind of the same way that I think of Vrabel when he brought in Dean Pease, right? Who he had been coached by when he was a player in New England, who had just retired as the defensive coordinator in Baltimore, and Mike was able to talk him out of retirement to come to Tennessee to help kind of give him some guidance, and that worked really, really well until such time as Dean Pease was ready to move on. Spent, I want to say, a year in Atlanta with Arthur Smith and the Falcons, and that is kind of how it went from there. So, comparison, you can't compare Callahan to Vrabel because Vrabel is infinitely more of an established head coach, and we have no idea what kind of head coach Brian Callahan is going to be. But the fun is in finding out, right? And if you're a Titans fan, I'm sure you're hopeful that you find out in a positive fashion as opposed to seeing some hiccups. And there are going to be some growing pains, right? Because Brian Callahan is not just the head coach, right? He's the offensive play caller. So all the shit that you guys gave Todd Downing, Arthur Smith, because many of you love Arthur Smith now, but I remember very much until like week 9 or 10 of that 2019 season, many of you were calling for Arthur Smith's job. So it's not easy being the offensive play caller on top of being the head coach, because then you are doubly responsible for a quarterback who your success or failure is going to be directly tied to in Will Levis. It's really going to be a fascinating season. I'm looking forward to it. So from that, those are my three biggest questions that the Titans need to answer as we get ready to enter training camp, preseason games, and all the fun that will officially get up and running. Report day will be Tuesday. Wednesday will be the first day of practice. Just as a reminder, you guys will really enjoy the training camp broadcasts. While we're out there doing them, it's going to be a great time. I will tell you the list of players that we are planning to have on the show throughout the course of this. Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, Denard Wilson, Bill Callahan, Will Levis, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Traylon Burks, Tajay Spears, Chig, J.C. Latham, Jeff Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, L'Jarius Sneed, Cheeto Awuzie, Roger McCreary, Amani Hooker, and I asked for Ryan Stonehouse if at some point he is available and healthy to be interviewed. So we will see what happens with the Titans punter. But yeah, we're fired up about the training camp practices, and those are going to be among the interviews. Maybe we won't get to all of them. We rarely get to all of them every year because, the practice schedule may not work. Some days we might have a player scheduled, then a player gets hurt because football practice is what it is. And so we have to make adjustments on the fly. But anyway, that's the projected lineup right now as we begin our basically 2 months of training camp practices, and interviews while we do the radio show out there live from training camp. So we're looking forward to it, except for Jackson, because we're going to leave Jackson at the studio. Lucas and I get to go to training camp, and he's probably going to be miserable in that dark hole of a production studio for 2 months, helping us do the radio show, but such is life. Anyway, B. French says, open practice at Nissan Stadium next Saturday. Will there be autograph opportunities? I don't want to tell you incorrectly because I don't know for certain, but I would be shocked if there would not be autograph opportunities. Those things are pretty casual, especially after practice. It may not be before practice, right? And I'm hoping for your guys' sake, that's this coming Saturday, right? That's in less than a week from now. I have not yet looked at the week-long weather forecast, but I'm hoping that there's at least a little break in the weather, maybe a little bit of overcast for you guys out there at Nissan Stadium. They're expecting about 16,000 of you at the Nissan Stadium open practice because there's only so many open practices that the entirety of the fan base can attend or has the option to attend for free. But yes, I would imagine that there would be autograph opportunities. I'm not going to guarantee that for you because I do not know specifics on how they might execute said autograph opportunities. Looks like it's going to be 89 and overcast on Saturday, the 27th right now. So not the worst, but definitely warmer than it's going to be the rest of the week because I think we're going to have rain throughout. Tig says, what is the situation, the parking situation this season, Buck? It looks like a mess around Nissan Stadium. Listen, I have no idea what they're going to do with you guys. I haven't. I'm sure we'll ask tomorrow at some point, or well, we wouldn't be asking Brian Callahan or rather not tomorrow, but Tuesday. Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon are going to have answers for us on the parking situation. So I would imagine that you'll have more direct communication, more information from the club than you will from me because, I mean, as far as I know, our parking situation is they're having us, or at least I have heard, we have not seen the official plan yet, but I have heard that their plan is to have us park at the practice facility in Metro Center and bus us over, which is going to be just, somebody's for sure going to miss that bus. It's going to be a bit of a mess. William Jones says they sent out parking maps for PSL holders. Okay, well, I'm a media member. I'm not a PSL holder, so I don't have access to those. But I'd be curious if any of you wanted to tweet that to me or DM it to me maybe on Instagram. I would be curious to see the parking setup. I'd like to know a little better myself because I know I'm not going to have parking anymore. We're going to have to schlep out the Metro Center every day before games and whatnot. Or at least right now, that's the plan. Or at least that's the plan that I've heard. Maybe they've changed the plan since last I checked in. But, we'll find out this week because we'll all be back in the building. So from questions about the offense to projections ahead of this season, who will lead the Titans in targets and receptions? So let's just make it receptions. Who will lead the Titans in receptions in 2024? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is where we can discuss. While I remind you that the primetime program is made possible by True Math Fitness in the Gulch, the best way to work out. The best workout in Middle Tennessee is always TrueMath Fitness. They will go above and beyond to help you reach your fitness goals. It is for any level of fitness. So don't feel intimidated. Don't feel overwhelmed when it comes to getting back in a workout routine. Sometimes it can be annoying. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. Sometimes it can be daunting. That is not the case at TrueMath Fitness. It's a very, very easing into it process for any level of fitness, whether it's the group fitness classes that they offer Monday through Sunday. Well, I guess Sunday through Saturday, all week long. They have the open gym if you're a member at TrueMath for you to work out at your pleasure. You can also sign up for personal training. I love the personal training. I go for Fridays with Worth Campbell, the head trainer and owner at TrueMath, so you can get into the best shape possible at TrueMathFitness.com to satisfy your fitness goals and needs. TrueMathFitness.com for that first workout free, as I mentioned. Who will lead the Titans in receptions this year? Jack Ripper says Hooker. You better hope not. I would add parenthetically. B French says D-Hop in receptions, Calvin Ridley in yards. He's playing a different game. We're adding a layer to the game. Byron is with it on D-Hop. A lot of love for D-Hop, even though you've got the $92 million man who is supposed to be playing opposite D-Hop. Now, receptions doesn't mean he has to lead in yards. Receptions doesn't mean he has to lead in touchdowns. Receptions doesn't mean that he has to lead in targets even, right? Although one would think that there would be some kind of a correlation as long as the wide receiver is at least base level competent, and your wide receiver room is as base level competent as it might have ever been in the history of this franchise, top to bottom. I don't know if they have had a deeper wide receiver room than the one that they are currently boasting, but Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Boyd, Treylon Burks, however you might order them, Nick Westbrook-Akina, Kyle Phillips, Jaquan Jackson. You also have some guys like Mason Kinsey and Kearis Jackson roaming around there as well. I don't remember the UDFA wide receivers that they added. I know that there was at least one. I probably need to have a refresher on the entirety of the 90 players that they're bringing into training camp ahead of Tuesday, or I guess ahead of Wednesday, but you get the gist, right? Those are the primary figures. I think so. Hopkins had 75 receptions last year as the primary target in the offense, in the passing game, right? Somebody like Tajay Spears had at least 50 receptions. I want to say Tajay had 52 receptions last year. Chig was second on the team after Hopkins, and Chig had a really, really rough first 3 quarters of the season. He was, I dare say, a bad player for 3 quarters of the season until things started to iron themselves out late in the year. But by then, playoffs were out of hand. The division was out of hand. And so, how much meaning you can assign to that and how much, how skeptical you might be of somebody like Chig in a situation like that also has a part to play. But there's a lot more mouths to feed in this offense. Corey D. Jackson says both will have 1,000 yards this year. I will always bet the under on that, especially that's just how I'm conditioned. It's, they're the Tennessee Titans. They've never had a 4,000-yard passer. I happen to think that Will Levis would be capable of doing it this year. I think that he's going to be plenty capable of doing it this year. But until such time as I see it with my own eyes, I'm not going to believe that they can do it, because the closest they've come in recent memory is, I think AJ had 1,000 his rookie season, north of 1,000 his rookie season, and Corey Davis was just shy of 1,000 in that year, in that 2019 regular season as well. B. French says, is Josh Wiley going to be tight end number 1? I mean, I'm inclined to say Chig, but I do think it's a lot closer than people realize, people might think. I think a lot of people are just deferential to Chig, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think Chig has to earn it the same way that Levis has to earn. I mean, Levis is a little different, right? They have put their franchise in the hands of the quarterback. That's not the case for Chig, so maybe a bad example. But yeah, I would probably defer Chig slightly, but still, I don't see why Wiley can't make an impact here. It's not like Chig has done anything to be the all-time tight end 1 here. It's been, it's been a mixed bag of results so far for Chig Okonkwo. So we will find out. Corey D. Jackson says Chig is tight end 1. It's not as close as people think. Well, then we fundamentally disagree, Corey, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. I happen to hear differently about that. But, that's what training camp is for. They have to prove it, both of them. There's nothing that Josh Wiley has earned to date other than an opportunity. There's nothing that Chigakonkwo has earned to date other than an opportunity. So we will find out here in the coming weeks and months. I am going to say that Calvin Ridley will lead this team in receptions, but I understand why people would go Hopkins because, in theory, if you have to double cover somebody, you're probably going to defer to Calvin Ridley, which would make those receiving opportunities fewer and far between. But if you are paying Calvin Ridley $92 million, then I expect him to make contested catches anyway. I expect him to be able to be a matchup problem. I expect him to be deployed in multiple ways across the formation. I would expect that there is a lot of things that they can do with both Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. Tyler Boyd is going to be exclusively in the slot. So I think that the idea of Hopkins having more receptions while Ridley has more yards is totally viable. I see a lot of you guys making that suggestion. I still think, though, that Calvin Ridley should, for what they're paying him, because once you start getting paid that kind of money, we start pocket watching, and I don't think that's necessarily unfair. I think the expectation should be for Calvin Ridley to lead them in yards, receptions, touchdowns for that kind of money that he is making as a $20+ million receiver over the course of the next 4 seasons, or at least if he plays out the entirety of the contract, which we will find out. This is year 1. Jonathan says, will they go into the season with 3 quarterbacks? Last year made more sense to do so, but this year, not so much. That's a fourth element to add here that would be curious, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point as we get closer to roster cuts and actually seeing. Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback until he's not, and that doesn't bode well for Malik Willis. But I get the, this we'll call it an educated guess. I don't know anything, and of course, camp hasn't even played itself out, so we'll find out how viable this might be. But I think their initial inclination would be to try and keep Malik rather than cutting him and try and sneak him through on waivers to the practice squad. I think that they would prefer to have him on the rock, or at least I think they would prefer to have him. And if they have to keep a third quarterback on the initial 53, doesn't mean that they have to keep him year round. But I would at least think on the initial 53 that there would be, unless it's like so clear and obvious that he is not getting any better. And he got better from one training camp to the next. It just, it wasn't sufficient enough, and they had to make the move with Levis that they did. I don't think that's entirely on Malik. But, this is a quarterback-centric, offensive-minded coaching staff, or at least around the head coach it is. They've got Denard Wilson and plenty of veteran leadership on the defensive side of the coaching staff as well. But I would think on the initial 53 that Malik Willis is probably going to be there. But again, this is before any camp practices have taken place, so that position may change as new information becomes available, as we watch these guys and as we see how they go through the process. All right, a little bit of Sunday Funday, and that is how we will wrap the show. What's the best thing you saw on the internet this weekend? On Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. We will discuss at length together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress. Don't sell without the intel that the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators can provide to you. I can't. I've seen a couple of different videos coming out of training camps, because training camps for the Houston Texans have started. Training camp for the Chicago Bears has already started. Training camp for the Kansas City Chiefs has already started. So the best thing that I saw on the internet this weekend is training camp footage, like Patrick Mahomes hitting his first-round pick, Xavier Worthy, in stride, rolling to his left, flipping his hips, and flicking it effortlessly 60 yards down the field. So that is courtesy of the KC Sporting Network on Twitter. That is the best thing that I saw on the internet this week. Training camp footage, specifically Football. Thanks, Buffalo, says Bryce Erickson, talking about the trade with the Bills that allowed Kansas City to draft the fastest wide receiver that we've seen go through, the fastest player that we've seen go through the combine, who has actual hands as opposed to somebody like Kadarius Toney. But yes, training camp footage is the best thing that I saw on the internet this weekend. I saw somebody say Biden dropping out is the best thing that they saw this weekend. The Trump Biden Kill Tony episode was amazing, says Jonathan Caverly. I didn't see the full episode, but I saw the clips. Shane Gillis says Trump is hilarious. And now they have to find somebody. It sounds like presumptively it's going to be Kamala Harris who takes over for Biden. I know that Joe Biden endorsed her today. I know that several other people on the Democratic side of things endorsed her today. I know the vast majority of Democrats are excited to see Joe Biden drop out as well. It gives them, I think that's the one thing politically that we all have had consensus about, Republican, Democrat, independent or otherwise, is the idea that Biden can't do it for another 4 years. Like, that's the first time I feel like there's been political consensus in this country on anything, regardless of party affiliation. That just, it can't be Joe Biden out there. So a lot of Democrats excited about it. I'm sure Republicans, there's been a lot of optimism about it. Certainly since Trump, thank God, survived that assassination attempt, that attempt on his life, all of that very scary stuff. But yes, it is going to be an interesting couple of months, not just on the football side of things, but there's going to be plenty going on in the political world as well. William Jones says, why are Bears Titans tickets so high? Ooh, are they? Well, it's because it's at Chicago. Chicago fans are going to sell that place out to see Caleb Williams. That's why they're so high. 100%. The Bears have never had a quarterback really in the franchise's history. A franchise that has been quarterback cursed in the same way the Titans are wide receiver cursed. The Bears have been quarterback cursed. So yeah, that is not surprising to me at all that Bears fans would buy up all the tickets to that, drive the prices up, and make it pretty hard for a Titans fan to get a cost-effective ticket. Even the 400 sections are 250 plus. I mean, it's week one, baby. Nobody sucks yet, right? There's not a bad team in the field. Titans don't suck. Bears don't suck. Everybody's 0-0, and it's going to be. I'm looking forward to that game. Looking forward to that game a lot. As a matter of fact, that's a really fun season opener, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about it as we get ramped up for training camp. All right, very exciting. Looking forward to talking more Titans with you guys for the next 3 hours, or for the 3 hours tomorrow on 104.5 The Zone. So make sure you join in with us on the radio show. We cannot wait for all of that. We'll have a great time where Lucas and Jackson have even talked me into making season predictions so we can run back how loud wrong I am at the end of the year, which I know you all enjoy, which I've been loath to do, but I do think that there's some fun in it, and especially being loud wrong. So, you guys want predictions? We'll make predictions. I don't know if you'll like my predictions or not, but we will see how it all plans out. And maybe you will like my predictions, because I remember last time I made any kind of a prediction, I thought Matt Ryan was going to be the best quarterback in the division a couple of years ago, and famously that did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. Anyway, have a great rest of your night. 10 to 1 tomorrow on the radio show. We will see you then on 104.5 The Zone.
Go home! Go home! Go home!